Hello and welcome to a new car review video on the channel, and welcome to the Porsche 911 Carrera 4 GTS. I'm back at Porsche HQ in Reading to collect this car. It's a Friday night, but I've got the car for the weekend, so I'm going to get it back to Leicester and get it on some more familiar roads so we can kind of find out what it's like to live with and find out, as I'm suspecting, if the GTS 911 is the sweet spot of the 992 range. Now, you can't do a car review without having a decent coffee. So, you join me a couple of days later in and around the roads near Bradgate Park in Leicestershire. I've had a couple of days to get acquainted with the GTS, so hopefully now I can give you a bit of considered opinion. So let's talk about the design of the GTS first of all. It comes with the sports design package, which one of the things that you notice first of all is that it has the turbo centre lock wheels, which look pretty cool. They're also in a satin finish as well. The GTS also gets the black pack, which has black badging and black trims on the windows and black elements in the bumpers, which looks really cool. You also get a 10mm drop in ride height because you've got the sport suspension, which again just adds to the stance a little bit of the car and makes it look really menacing. I mentioned in my review of the Cayman GTS that I tend to think of the GTS as a bit of a Q car, or having a bit of a Q car vibe, because they sort of slip under the radar and they're not so noticeable with all the blacked out elements. This one really leans into that because it's got the black calipers and it's also in this lovely agate or agate grey colour, so it's not as sort of shouty as the Viper Green was or the lovely yellow that we got on the Carrera T. So part of what makes a GTS, as well as the kind of blacked out looks, are the sports exhaust, and this one's no exception. There's also sound deadening removed as well for the GTS, so you hear a lot more of the engine and a lot more of the exhaust note. This sports exhaust has been specifically tuned for the GTS, and it's got a lovely kind of raucous sound to it, especially when you hit the sports exhaust button here on the dashboard, which really opens up the baffles and gives you that full sound. I don't know whether you could hear that, but that was even without the sports exhaust button on, so let's switch that on, see if we can hear a difference. Yeah, it's quite a bit louder. Sounds good though. Okay, let's switch that off as we come into the urban areas. The GTS also gets 30 brake horsepower and 15 foot-pounds of torque more than you get with a Carrera S. So anybody who's got a Carrera S is going to feel that little bit extra oomph as well as the noise. As I mentioned then, the sports suspension gives you a 10mm drop, which not only can you notice from the outside, but you can also certainly feel it as you're riding along. You can feel the bumps a lot more. There's also dynamic dampers as well, so I can firm it up more if I want to, but to be honest, it kind of feels firm enough even without that activated. You certainly can feel the vibration through the steering and also through the chassis, so you do get that kind of slightly more raw, slightly more sporty feel. The GTS has also got different anti-roll bars and different settings with the PSM management, so that's also something that actually just makes it feel that little bit more raw and that little bit more aggressive. The GTS has also got helper springs on the rear suspension taken from the turbo, which just keeps the rear springs in tension more of the time so that you get to feel more of the road more of the time, and therefore it gives you better feedback. You've got the different driving modes, of course, located on the steering wheel. You've got normal, sport and sports plus. They feel a little bit more precise than you'd probably find in the standard Carrera and the Carrera S, but that obviously adds to the GTS feeling a little bit more focused. But my impressions are, I still think it makes it feel more of a usable road car than a GT3. The driving position, I would say, is just about perfect. And also, the weight of the steering is lovely as well. It weights up beautifully just as you come into corners or if you increase speed. And it's just really confidence inspiring, as I always say. The positioning of the pedals and the position or the distance between the pedals is great as well. Obviously there's only two in this because it's a PDK, but just the weights of them and the progressiveness of the brake pedal, even though these are the turbo brakes and this car's fitted with the standard steel brakes, but even so, just the feedback that you get from the braking and the actual power of the braking is amazing. This particular car is fitted with the sports steering wheel with Alcantara or Race Tech as Porsche calls it now, and I think that's an absolute must. It really gives that sort of driver focused race car type feel to it, and I don't think I'd actually spec a Porsche without the Race Tech on the steering wheel. The PDK is super slick and it's really fast with the changes as well. And one of the things I like about it is it can be engaging when you want it to be, and you can just forget about it when you don't want to. As a best of both worlds scenario, I think I'm probably leaning towards, again, as I've mentioned in other videos, the PDK, because it's just so nice to live with. And then hiding behind the steering wheel are those lovely paddles just when you want to have a little bit of play and a little bit more excitement. The power delivery from the 3-litre flat 6 with the twin turbos is absolutely brutal. See what I mean? I think this feels like the fastest 911 I've actually driven. I think because the turbos are so quick and there's so much torque that you don't get as quickly with a GT3 engine. It's actually quite frightening. It is really, really fast. The great thing is though, it always feels completely in control because the chassis is so accomplished, and the fact that we've got four-wheel drive in this Carrera 4, I've never managed to unplant it. So the roads are a little bit damp, a little bit greasy, but it just literally stays planted all of the time. Yes, it's scary in its power delivery, but it feels so sure-footed and so competent in how it's delivering the power, which takes away some of the scariness because you feel confidence in the abilities of the chassis. So, a few reviewers have said or complained that the car's a little bit loud inside. I think it is fairly loud. Hopefully you can hear me okay with the microphone. It's not so bad today. I'm out for a lovely Sunday drive, so I can kind of live with it. But when I first picked the car up, I was quite shocked at how much tyre noise there is. Obviously, as a petrol head, we're not bothered about engine noise. We want to hear that, and that's why it's good that there's less sound deadening. But one of the things that I noticed when I picked the car up and I was driving back on the motorway was that there's a lot of tyre noise, and it really was loud. I think I have, though, over the last couple of days, I've got used to it and I've kind of don't really notice it now. Now, whether that's a good thing for something that I'm going to be driving every day or whether I'm going to end up with tinnitus or something, I'm not really sure. But again, it depends on what you're going to use the car for. Some people, non-car people, when you take them out in it, like my wife is not really a car person, they just wonder why you've got such a nice car but it's so noisy. So I know you can get the sort of the lightweight pack, which might have less sound deadening and a roll cage and deleted seats and stuff like that, but I'd kind of like the heavyweight pack, so I'd quite like it to have some extra sound deadening so that I don't have to hear the tyre noise, but maybe I could still hear the engine. The other great thing from a PDK point of view is obviously with this new generation 992, you don't get the great cup holders that came out of the dashboard. You get one that comes out the far side of the dashboard, as you can see here, but you do get one that sits right in the middle of the centre console, and people have moaned about that it's really poor ergonomics and bad positioning. But of course, if you've got the PDK, you're not changing gears, so you don't have to worry about it really. And also, if you're a flat white lover like me, the cup sits quite low anyway, so it doesn't bother me at all. The brakes are from the turbo, as I probably mentioned. This particular car is fitted with the standard steel brakes, and they're more than enough for me. They've got tons of stopping power and lovely feel. Carbon ceramics are available at a £6,000 option, but they're fantastic. They don't fade, but they are going to be expensive to replace. And I think, to be honest, my view would be that the steels are good enough. So a question might be then, is it better than a GT3? So that is a very difficult question to answer, because I suppose it depends what you're going to use it for. Having driven the GT3, it's a fantastic thing, and I do love that engine. But I think if you're going to use it more of the time, and specifically on the road, maybe the GTS is the better option. I think if you are one of those lucky people who is deciding between a GT3 and a GTS, I think one of the things I would say is that this Carrera 4 is really sure-footed, and that might not necessarily be what you want if you're buying it for driving dynamics. It's great to use every day, and it's really confidence inspiring, as I mentioned, but you might want to have that little bit more of a feel from the rear wheel drive. So I would probably say that, yeah, if you just want it to be as unscary as possible in all conditions, go for the Carrera 4. But if you want a bit of that GT3 feel and you want it to move around a little bit, maybe the Carrera 2 GTS would be the one to go for. So here's a few headline figures for those people that like the stats. It's got a 3-litre flat 6 twin turbo engine. Maximum power output is 480 horsepower, and there's 570 newton meters of torque. That's quite a lot. It's all-wheel drive, as I've mentioned, and it's got an 8-speed PDK. Also, keeping us on the road is Porsche stability management. The top speed is 192 miles an hour, and we're not going to be going anywhere near that today. The 0 to 62 time is 3.3 seconds, and it's got a 64-litre fuel tank with 24.8 to 26.6 miles per gallon. So not too bad considering the size of the engine and the amount of power available. The luggage compartment in the front, which is really usable, is 132 litres. You can get sort of carry-on cases in there, I think about 3 of them, so it's a really good usable space. And of course you've got storage capacity in the back when you haven't got the kids in there. Okay, we've got the spec sheet, so let's just have a look at the spec for this particular press car. So the standard price for the 911 Carrera 4 GTS is £116,960. So for this particular car, we've got agate grey metallic, £876. The Race Tech interior package in black is actually a zero cost option. I'd definitely go for that because I think that looks great. Sport Seats Plus electric 4-way, that's a zero cost option as well. They're really nice. I much prefer these than the bucket seats that you get in a GT3. These hold you really well, so really comfortable. Electric slide and tilt sunroof, £1,238 option. I like that better than I thought I would. I thought it would mess up the roof line of the coupe, but I think it works really well. Electric folding exterior mirrors, £240. Preparation for roof transport system, £42. I'm sure it would look cool with a couple of mountain bikes on the top. Porsche active suspension management, a zero cost option. Power steering plus, £185. Brake calipers painted in black high gloss, that's a £581 option, which is quite expensive, but I think it does give it, or does add to the stealthy look, or the Q car look. 20 inch and 21 inch Turbo S wheels painted in satin black, that's a zero cost option for the GTS. Exclusive design tail lights, which are, they're not red, they're transparent, so quite neutral looking. That's a £105 option. I do really like the rear lights. I love the light bar, as I mentioned. I think it looks great at night. But you get that with the red lights as well. So, this is quite a nice look for this car. Park assist, including surround view, £1,196. I do like the bird's eye view. It's really handy for not curbing the wheels. Ionizer, £203. Light design package, £354. If that is the sort of smart lighting, I think that's really useful. It turns and steers with the car, and also the dipping beam is automatic as well, so that's really good. Bose surround sound system, £1,002. Again, I'd spec that. I can recommend that. It sounds fantastic. Tyre sealing compound, an electric air compressor, probably should be free, £42. And automatic mirrors with rain sensors is a zero cost option. So the total price for this press car is £123,024. So we've got about, I think it's maybe just over £7,000 worth of options. The interior really is a lovely place to be. It's a nice combination of sort of a feeling like you're in a racy car, but also a quality premium product as well. I do love the race tech Alcantara on the seats. That looks fantastic, and these sport seats as well are lovely and really comfortable. You get that lovely classic instrument cluster in front of you with a rev counter in the middle, which is a physical dial. It's got GTS on it as well, so it's a nice bit of branding. And then you get two 7-inch TFT screens either side, which are changeable, from everything from tyre pressures to a G monitor to checking the all-wheel drive system, where the power is being distributed to, a performance power curve as well. You can also put it into like a reduced mode when you're concentrating and you mainly just want to see the rev counter. And also, if you change the drive mode, it changes on the TFT screen as well. So, and it's got you can switch it to the satellite navigation as well, which is quite nice. So you can have your music and your entertainment on the center console, and you can have navigation indication right in front of you. We've got the updated PCM in the center console as well, with a 10.9-inch screen. It's really sharp. The graphic updates are kind of nice and minimal and really clear and easy to follow. I really do like Porsche's infotainment system. It works seamlessly, and it's really easy to switch through the different modes. And it's nice, you know, just like working on an iPad, you've got the big icons down the right-hand side that are always there. So it's very easy to get back to the different elements that you want to move between. This car's got the Bose upgraded sound system with 150 watt power and 8 speakers as well. I definitely recommend that. I think the standard system would probably be okay, but every car that I've borrowed from Porsche has the Bose system in it, and it does sound fantastic. It's got lovely bass response. I'm not an audiophile, I don't really know much about it, and certainly everything I've listened to sounds really clear and crisp. It's got an integrated amplifier as well, which, as I've said, just gives you that full range of sound. You've got smartphone integration as well with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's wireless as well, so you don't have to plug your phone in. So let's get on to things that I really like about the GTS then. Well, there's a lot more torque than you'd find in the GT3, or certainly a lot more torque that's available more of the time because of the turbos. Now that can be a blessing and also a curse, because as I mentioned earlier, it does make it a little bit scary. I do like these sport seats. I think they're worth the money, that little bit of an upgrade. I love the Alcantara or Race Tech on them. They grip you beautifully, and they're heated, of course, so they really are comfortable. I can imagine going long journeys in these. Yeah, I really didn't like the bucket seats in the GT3. They're very expensive for a start off, but that wasn't the main problem. Getting in and out, I'll put in a little bit of B-roll here of me getting in and out of the GT3. It was just really hard work. But I think if you've got the car for the weekend and you're taking it to the track, yes, by all means go for it. But on the road, these sport seats are just what you need. Another thing I do like this colour. It's not just a grey, it's got a kind of a touch of green to it, a little bit like a kind of a Aston Martin Vanquish type colour to it. I'm tempted by all the kind of sporty Viper green. I never thought I would be, but after having that Viper green car, it does make it a bit of an event. So again, totally personal choice. I think most of the colours that are available as standard, even before you get to paint to sample, are just fantastic on the Porsche range. I think they choose them really well. I'm a big crayon fan. I like the Viper green as well. I do like shark blue, although I suppose it's become a little bit passé now, so I probably wouldn't be able to hit the tick on that, but it's still a beautiful colour. So yeah, personal thing. But I think if you want to be shouty, there's some great colours. I think if you want to be understated, like this in the Agate or Agate grey, take your pick. Something I do like as well is this sunroof. I didn't think that I would go for a sunroof on a 911, because in the past I've sort of thought that it interrupts the roof line, and if you're a bit of a Porsche-phile like me, you want that full roof line look if you're not going for the convertible. But this one's integrated quite nicely in the painted finish, so it sort of blends in and you really don't notice it when it's closed, but you get all of the benefit of having all that lovely fresh air in the cabin during the summer or even during the winter, but without having to have the side windows down where you get blown around a lot. I do like the stance of the GTS as well, the fact that it's 10mm lower. I like the look of it from the outside. I think it makes it look very purposeful. But of course, you can't have one without the other. It does compromise the ride a little bit compared with the standard Carrera or a Carrera S. I do like having the back seats. I think whether that's important to you, again, it's another one of those personal things. To me, it's a must. That was the only one of the things that I was disappointed with the Carrera T, was that it didn't have back seats. The fact that I can use it occasionally to drop the kids off or put more luggage in or whatever is really useful. Let's talk about things that I don't like then. Well, if we're honest, as you can see by the bumpy camera, the ride quality is a little bit harsh for the road, but it really depends on what you want. You know, you might be screaming at the screen saying, well, don't buy a GTS then, you idiot. This is what you're buying into if you want this particular type of car. I suppose because we've got electronic dampers, I don't know whether it's possible, I'm not an engineer, but we have got normal, sport and sports plus. So it would be interesting to know why, or if it's possible to have more of a range in that damper, so that normal really was that little bit more normal, and then sport and sports plus could be where it hunkers down a little bit more. But I think it's just something to be aware of, that it is a little bit harsh compared with the sort of standard non-GTS products. I think it is a little bit too noisy for a daily. Certainly if you're going to do sort of longer commutes on the motorway, because it's not the engine, because we all love those sounds and we're never going to complain about that, but it's the tyre noise. The tyre roar is quite loud because we've got big tyres and we've lost some of the sound deadening as well. Something else I don't like, and this wasn't something I was expecting to notice, but it's come across in the couple of days that I've had the car, is that I find the paddles on the PDK a little bit too small. Both in height as well, it would be nice if they were longer, and also they're quite far in on the steering wheel, so you kind of have to reach around to get to them. So I think if they were taller and they were further towards the edge of the steering wheel, I think that would be better. I think you see that on McLarens and things like that. These are a little bit small, so I think with this driver focused car, I can understand why they might be small on maybe the standard Carrera. But I think on this more driver-focused GTS, I think the paddles should be bigger. To sum up then, I have in previous videos mentioned I'm a big fan of the GTS model line. In the previous video, which you can link to, the Cayman GTS, I really loved that, but part of it was that I really loved the engine, the naturally aspirated, detuned GT3 engine. I think to find that in that car was just unbelievable, and it really felt like you had a very specialist engine as part of the GTS product. So I don't love the engine as much as I did with the Cayman GTS engine. As I mentioned earlier, the power delivery, because of the turbos and the torque, is absolutely brutal. That's a little bit to kind of get used to, because this does make it feel like the fastest 911 that I've driven on the road. So here we go, this is Carl's non-scientific way of describing it. The turboed engine in this is like being thumped, so like physical contact, thump onto your back, whereas the linear engine in the GT3 or the Cayman GTS is like somebody's already got their hand on your back and they're just gradually accelerating you. It's still exhilarating, but it's not like a kick in the back. But again, both of those experiences are interesting and you'll get used to them. It just depends on how you like it, and personally I feel like I like the naturally aspirated engine. So is the GTS 911 the sweet spot of the 992-911 range? I would say yes and no. The yes part is that it does feel like an event when you get in it, just like the Cayman GTS did. Whereas maybe the Carrera might feel like more of a regular car, arguably. The GTS products do feel like a bit of an event. You've got the noise, you've got the stiff ride. It does make you feel like you're in something special. I can't help but think though that if you begin to build your own cars, not paint to sample, build to sample, that if you put a detuned GT3 engine in this, just like you have in the Cayman GTS, that would make it feel the ultimate GTS product, because you kind of have the best of both worlds. So as the GTS is, I've been on the Configurator and spent a lot of time on there, probably too much, and I've spec'd up some of the elements that I like about this car, like the steering wheel and the race tech seats and things like that, and various other sort of black trim and bits and bobs like that, onto a standard Carrera, because I am a big fan of the standard Carrera. And I could kind of get a lot of what I wanted to make it kind of have the appearance of this car, but keeping it under 100 grand. So you could argue that I can sort of build a Carrera and have some of the comfort of a Carrera, you know, at a kind of a price point that might be that little bit more acceptable depending on what you're thinking of spending. And also I could use it more of a daily. So I've got the look, but I've got the comfort. I don't know, would I miss the noise? Maybe. Certainly when I'm driving around Bradgate, I might miss the noise and the excitement of the GTS. I don't know, I'm so conflicted. Because I think that's the beauty of the Porsche range. You know, sometimes people criticise Porsche for having so many 911 variants, but I think it's because they really understand their customer. I think if you really want to tailor the car, and it is tailoring the car, you know, what could be nicer than that? To really working out what works for you, and then building and choosing and speccing your car very specifically to what you like. Another way you could look at it is that maybe the GTS is a car that you build up to, a little bit like alcohol. You know, you start off on something like a fruit cider, I'm still at that stage, and then you kind of build up to the heavier stuff. So maybe you need to spend some time in a Carrera or a Carrera S until you want to move on to something that is slightly more hardcore. So let's finish this sum up. GTSs are some of the coolest looking Porsches that you can buy. So really, if you can live with a little bit more noise and a firmer ride, I think go for it, and especially if your commute is short as well. That's about it for this video, and it's about it for my time with the 911 Carrera 4 GTS. If you like this video, why not like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you're notified of when I produce more videos. So thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.